Ever glance at your grocery bill or the price of a new phone and just think, why is everything so expensive? It's not just you, and it's not always inflation. There's an invisible tax baked into the price of many things you buy every day, from your sneakers to your coffee. We're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden cost, show you how it works, and explain why politicians can't seem to stop arguing about it. This is the story of tariffs, and how they secretly reach right into your wallet. Think about the last time you bought a new pair of shoes, or a phone. Did you wonder why the price was so high? It turns out there's a secret ingredient in that price tag that has nothing to do with the product itself. Let's just start with a fact. Stuff is expensive. We all feel it. The cost of electronics, clothes, food, and cars feels like it's on a never-ending elevator ride up. But what if I told you that a big chunk of that price tag has nothing to do with supply and demand or the cost of energy? What if it's a deliberate policy choice, a tax called a tariff? Think of a tariff as an extra fee a government slaps on goods when they're imported from another country. So, that smartphone built overseas, the t-shirt made in a factory across the ocean, or the fruit grown in a neighboring country, all of them can get hit with this tax before they even land on a store shelf. And while you won't see a line on your receipt that says tariff, you're almost certainly paying for it. In fact, the average effective tariff rate in the US has recently surged, reaching its highest levels since the 1930s. One analysis from Yale's Budget Lab estimates this could translate to an income loss of about $2,400 per year for the average US household. This isn't some abstract economic theory. It's a real cost that hits your budget, making it harder to afford the things you need and want. The core problem is simple. A hidden tax is making your life more expensive, and most people don't even realize it's there. Now that we know this hidden tax exists, the big question is, why? Why would a government deliberately make things more expensive for its own people? The answer is a mix of protection, profit, and power. So, what is this invisible tax, really? A tariff is just a tax that a government puts on imported goods and services. It's one of the oldest tricks in the economic playbook, used by nations for centuries to control who buys what from whom. The company that brings the goods into the country, the importer, is the one that pays this tax directly to the government. Tariffs come in two main flavors. The first is a specific tariff, which is a flat fee for each item. For example, a government could decide every imported car gets a $1,000 tax, no matter what it's worth. The second, and much more common type, is an ad valorem tariff. This is a percentage of the item's value. A 10% ad valorem tariff on a $30,000 imported car would be an extra $3,000. This is the one you usually hear about in the news. Now you might be asking, why on earth would a government want to make things more expensive for its own people? Politicians usually give three main reasons. First, the big one, to protect domestic industries. The idea is that by making foreign stuff more expensive, locally made products look more appealing. This is meant to shield local companies from foreign competition, giving them a chance to grow and, theoretically, save or create jobs. You'll often hear this called protectionism. The second reason is to make money for the government. Just like income tax, the money from tariffs flows into government accounts and can be used to pay down debt or fund public services. Before income taxes were really a thing, tariffs were a huge source of government cash. And third, tariffs are a political power tool. They can be used as a bargaining chip in trade deals to push other countries to change their policies. They can also be used to retaliate against what one country sees as unfair practices, like another country dumping products on the market for less than they cost to make. So, for policymakers, tariffs seem like a great lever to protect jobs, raise cash, and play hardball on the world stage. But as we're about to see, pulling that lever sets off a chain reaction that can shake the entire economy. So the government charges the importer a tax at the border. Simple, right? But that's not where the story ends. To understand who really pays, we need to follow the money from the shipping port all the way to your receipt. This is the most critical part to get. Who really pays for a tariff? While the importer is the one writing the check to the government, that cost doesn't just disappear. The financial hit gets passed down the line. Let's follow a product, say, a new pair of leather shoes. Imagine they're made in another country for $50. An American retail company imports them, but there's a 25% tariff on imported shoes. Now the importer has to pay an extra $12.50 in tax for every single pair. Their cost just jumped from $50 to $62.50. So what does the retail company do? They don't have many good options. They could just eat that extra cost and make less profit. Some might try this for a bit to avoid scaring away customers, but that's not a great long-term plan, especially for smaller businesses. The most common move is to pass that cost straight to the consumer. That pair of shoes that might have been priced at $100 is now sitting on the shelf for $112.50 or even more to cover the tariff. You, the customer, end up paying more because of a tax that was applied long before you ever saw the product. Studies on recent tariffs show this clearly. For instance, a significant tariff on washing machines caused their median price to jump. But it gets even trickier. What if a product is made here but uses foreign parts? Think about a car assembled in America. The steel might come from one country, the engine parts from another, and the electronics from a third. Tariffs on those individual components drive up the car company's manufacturing costs. So even for a car that's proudly stamped "Made in the USA", the final price you pay can go up. This is the hidden mechanism. A tax at the border creates a ripple of higher costs that ultimately lands on your receipt. If tariffs make everyday items more expensive, you'd think they'd be universally hated. But in the world of economics and politics, it's never that simple. For every downside, there's a claimed upside. The reason the tariff debate is so heated is that they create obvious winners and losers. It's a classic economic trade-off. Depending on your perspective, tariffs can look like a brilliant strategy or a terrible self-inflicted wound. Let's start with the pros, the intended upsides. The main goal is protecting specific domestic industries. For example, a tariff on foreign steel can help American steel companies sell more of their product and keep their workers employed. Supporters also argue that tariffs can push companies to build factories at home, a process called reshoring, which strengthens national manufacturing. They can also be a way to make sure a country can produce critical goods, like medical supplies or military hardware, for national security. And, yes, they do bring in money for the government. However, the list of cons is long and has a lot of support from economists. The most immediate downside is the one we've been talking about: higher prices for consumers. Tariffs often act as a regressive tax, which is a fancy way of saying they hit lower-income households the hardest, since a larger chunk of their budget goes to essentials like food and clothing. Then there's the collateral damage to other domestic industries. Sure, the steel industry might get a boost, but what about all the American companies that use steel, like car makers and construction companies? Their costs go up, which makes them less competitive. In fact, research on past steel tariffs showed that for every job created in the steel industry, many more jobs were lost in industries that use steel. Finally, there's the biggest risk: retaliation. When one country slaps on tariffs, its trading partners often hit back with their own tariffs. This can quickly spiral into a trade war, where both sides keep raising taxes, messing up global supply chains, and hurting their own exporters. For instance, if the US puts tariffs on certain goods, other countries might retaliate by taxing American exports like soybeans or motorcycles, which hurts those workers and industries. The broad consensus is that tariffs usually lead to less economic growth and a net loss of jobs. A tariff is like a financial earthquake, and not everyone is standing on solid ground. How does a massive corporation weather the storm compared to a small family-owned shop? The difference is huge. Small businesses often get hit the hardest. They don't have much bargaining power with suppliers and can't easily absorb higher costs. A small boutique that imports clothes or a local contractor using imported materials might have to raise prices, which could send their customers running to larger competitors. They also don't have the cash or connections to just find new suppliers in countries that aren't affected by tariffs. Large corporations, on the other hand, have more ways to pivot, even though it's still expensive and disruptive. Their first move is often to diversify their supply chains. If tariffs on Chinese goods get too high, they might shift production or source parts from places like Vietnam or Mexico. They can also afford to lobby the government for special exemptions for their products, a complicated process that gives an advantage to companies with deep pockets. And while some might move production back to the US, building new factories is a massive, multi-year investment that doesn't happen quickly. Many, just like small businesses, end up passing the costs on to you. All of this creates a chaotic and uncertain environment for businesses. It's tough to plan for the future, invest in new projects, or hire more people when you don't know what your costs will be next year. Businesses are forced to burn time and energy rethinking their entire operation, all because of a single policy change. So, what does this all mean for you? It means tariffs are way more than just a headline in the business section. They're a powerful and complicated tool with real, direct impacts on your budget. While they might be intended to protect some jobs and industries, they often work as a hidden tax that makes a huge range of things more expensive, from the car you drive to the clothes you wear. They set off a complex chain of economic events, sometimes leading to trade wars that hurt other industries and slow down the whole economy. So, the next time you hear politicians debating trade and tariffs, you'll know what they're really talking about: the price of the things that fill your shopping cart. You now understand how this invisible tax works, and you know that when it comes to tariffs, there's always a price to be paid, and it's often the consumer who picks up the tab. Now that you're in on the secret of tariffs, we want to hear from you. Have you noticed prices for certain things jumping up lately? Do you think protecting local industries is worth paying more at the store? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a conversation going. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more explainers that break down the economic forces shaping your world.